1, 2, 3, 4. He's Englebert Duck. What can you say about Englebert Duck? What can you say about a duck who takes you away on a magical adventure for a day? He's Englebert Duck. All the children know Englebert Duck. They all talk about this magical duck at school and at play, who takes them on adventures every day.
The Magical Journeys of Englebert Duck, Episode 3, The Story of the Very First Englebert Duck, by Russell Keith, Part 2. Before Merlin could answer the king, Englebert spoke up. "Yes, your majesty, I am a smart duck, and yes, Merlin and I have come up with a way to help you." All the knights at the round table let out gasps of surprise. They stared at Englebert. Was it possible that he had spoken? King Arthur was puzzled as well. "Is this some kind of magic trick, Merlin?" he asked as he let out a big laugh. Merlin looked at the king and said, "No, your majesty, it is not a trick at all. Please allow me to introduce you to my new friend Englebert. As you have already discovered, he is no ordinary duck, but in fact quite magical himself. He can not only speak, but he is very smart as well." King Arthur did not know what to say. Being the king, he always was polite, and so he greeted Englebert as he would anyone else. "I welcome you, Englebert, as a guest to Camelot, and hope that you will feel comfortable here. If there is anything I or any of my knights can do for you, please let us know," he said. "I thank you, your majesty," Englebert replied, "but I am not here to ask you for anything. Rather, I've come here with Merlin to offer you my assistance as your humble servant." The king and all his knights listened carefully to all that Merlin and Englebert said. They learned how Merlin had found Englebert, how Englebert began to speak, and how he could help King Arthur. When they had finished talking, King Arthur spoke. "This is an amazing story, Merlin, almost unbelievable. However, I have learned that you are no ordinary man. Such a great wizard as you are can do anything that can be dreamt. I can also see, Englebert, that you have magic in you as well. If you say that you can help me, then I believe you. You shall have your chance to show me." "Thank you for your confidence, your majesty," Englebert said. All the knights of the Round Table were eager to see how Englebert was going to be able to help King Arthur. The very famous Sir Lancelot was the first to speak. "My good friend, you are indeed a unique animal in that you have the ability to speak. But now the true test of your magical ability shall come. There is a faraway village at the end of the kingdom that is most difficult to travel to. It would take any one of us knights many weeks to reach, if we were even able to find it. It has no roads leading to it, and is surrounded by an extremely thick and dark forest. No knight or any of the king's soldiers has ever been able to reach the village safely. There is a tale that is told about this village. It is a very old place, and there exists there an exceptionally ancient and beautiful crown that belonged to one of the first kings of this land. If your magical ability is as great as you and Merlin say, then your finding this village and bringing this crown back to King Arthur will be easy." Now it was Merlin who spoke. "Good Sir Lancelot, you are quite wise yourself. This quest that you challenge our new friend Englebert with is the perfect way to test his abilities. If Englebert will agree to this challenge, we can begin his quest immediately." "I'm ready any time, Merlin, just point me in the direction," Englebert said. "All we know about this village is that it lies about 300 miles north of Camelot in the forest called Caerleon. The village itself is known as Britannium. The crown is thus known as the Crown of Britannium," Merlin explained. "When you arrive at the village, you must find the wise old man who has lived there for many years. His name is Magnus. When you find him, you must tell him that King Arthur sent you to visit him. Tell him that both King Arthur and Merlin send them their very best regards, and ask him to provide you rest, food, and drink. After you have rested, you will ask him for the crown of Britannium, and he will give it to you, for he will know that you ask on behalf of King Arthur." Englebert was a little confused. He had many questions to ask of Merlin. "How will I recognize Magnus? When I speak to him, how will he know that the story is true?" he asked. "You will recognize Magnus as soon as you see him. He is an ancient wizard, much like myself. He will know you are telling him the truth because you will give him this," said Merlin. He handed Englebert a beautiful ring made of bright gold and precious gems. On top of the ring was the image of a dragon, which was the symbol of King Arthur. Tell him that King Arthur wishes him long life and thanks him greatly for taking care of the crown," Merlin went on. But now it is time for it to be given to the one true King of England. For me, tell him that I send him good tidings and wish him to send King Arthur news of the village of Carrollton." "Then I have all the information I need to begin this quest," said Englebert. "I will be back very soon with the crown of Britannia and news of Magnus the Wizard." "Best of luck!" shouted all the knights. King Arthur stepped forward and spoke. "This is a wonderful quest that you are about to do for me and my kingdom. May your trip be speedy and successful." "Thank you, your majesty," Englebert said as he flew away at all speed. No one knew how long it would take Englebert to get to Britannia, or if he would even be able to find it. Everyone, even King Arthur, asked Merlin this question. Merlin had no answer for him. He knew only that Englebert had magical powers. He had no idea just how great those powers were. All he could tell the king and the knights of the Round Table was to be patient and have faith in their new friend. By the end of that day, Englebert had not yet returned. The next day arrived and went again with no sight of Englebert. Even that evening, King Arthur asked Merlin to come to see him. "There has been no news of our friend Englebert since he left here 2 days ago. Perhaps he is lost and not as magical as we had hoped," said the king. Merlin did not know what to say, for although it was true that Englebert had not come back yet from his quest, Merlin had the deepest faith in Englebert's ability. He wanted King Arthur to feel the same way. "We must give a friend some more time, your majesty," he said. "This is his first quest. We both know that Britannia is a far-away village that only a few have ever even been to." At that moment a young girl walked up to Merlin and said, "I believe, Merlin, I believe that Englebert has the powers to find Britannia and bring King Arthur back the crown of Britannia. I really do believe in him, Merlin." Merlin looked at this small child, and at that moment he had the answer that he had been seeking, for he knew that this would be the source of Englebert's magic. For as long as children believed in him, Englebert would be magical. "I know you believe in him, and so do I," said Merlin. Merlin grew very excited, for now he knew the secret to Englebert's magical power, and he spoke to King Arthur. "Your Majesty, our friend Englebert will return tomorrow, I promise." King Arthur knew that Merlin had great wisdom and could tell that Merlin was right about Englebert's return. He replied to Merlin, "You are a wise man, Merlin, and have always been so. You are right that we must give Englebert some more time. I shall tell everyone to expect his arrival tomorrow." The next morning came, but Englebert did not arrive back. All the knights and the others in the king's court began to talk. They had been so hopeful that Englebert could accomplish his quest for King Arthur's help. As Englebert had not returned, their hopes began to fade. At this point, Lauren Danielle, who had been listening to the story very carefully, spoke out. "Poor little Englebert! Was he lost? Did he ever get back to Camelot?" she asked. "Do not worry about him," Englebert said. "As I finish my story, you will hear for yourself what happens to him." The hours of the day passed slowly, as everyone was certain that Englebert had gotten lost. It was getting late in the afternoon when somebody, no one was sure who it was, began to shout. "Look up! In the sky! Do you see it?" "What can it be?" they shouted. Soon everyone in Camelot stood looking up at the sky. Sure enough, they saw a tiny little figure far, far away. As they continued to watch, the figure got closer and grew bigger. "It's him! It's him!" Several people began to shout all at once. "It's Englebert! He's returned and he's holding a crown! Go tell King Arthur and Merlin!" they shouted. It took just a few minutes until Englebert landed in the courtyard of Camelot. Everyone crowded round him, cheering and congratulating him for completing his quest. Soon Merlin appeared in the crowd. He walked over to Englebert and hugged him. As he began to speak, everyone became silent. "Welcome home, dear friend, and it's good to see you again. Although I was indeed worried about your safety, I knew deep within my heart that you would succeed. It is so good to see you, Merlin, and to be back in Camelot among all my new friends. I thank you for believing in me," Englebert said. "It was more than my belief in you, Englebert. It was and always will be the belief of children that will provide your guiding force," Merlin explained. "Now come with me, Englebert. It is time to see King Arthur and show him what you have brought back with you. He will be quite pleased." Merlin put his arm round Englebert, and the two of them walked into the castle to see King Arthur. Merlin and Englebert were greeted by the sound of cheering by all the knights as they entered the room with the Round Table. "Good cheer to Englebert! All hail Englebert the Brave!" they shouted. King Arthur sat among them. Everyone could tell that he was very happy to see Englebert. The king stood up and spoke. "Welcome home, my brave friend. On behalf of myself and all the people of my kingdom, I thank you wholeheartedly for your courage and your bravery. You have undertaken an incredibly difficult quest and have succeeded in a quick manner. You have brought me the ancient crown of Britannia, which all my knights and I have sought for many years. The crown belonged to the very first king of this land, and now it is once again where it belongs. Since you have performed this great favor for me, and proven to all of us your magical abilities, it is the tradition of this kingdom to grant you a wish." Englebert was very silent as he stood in front of King Arthur. He looked at Merlin for guidance, but Merlin said nothing. "Your Majesty," Englebert said, "I am especially honored that I have been able to serve my king and all my people of the kingdom. Merlin has given me the magical ability to speak and to do many other wonderful things. I do not know how I am able to do them, only that I can because I want to help. Merlin has told me how, when I didn't return right away, everyone, especially the children, told him not to worry. They believed in me. There's nothing more that I could possibly wish for. My only desire is to be able to use my magical abilities to help you rule this kingdom wisely." The king was not used to people being so modest and unselfish. "There must be something I can do for you," said King Arthur. It was then that Sir Lancelot spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may speak, I have an idea." "Of course you may. Tell us your idea, Sir Lancelot," said King Arthur. Sir Lancelot continued, "Since Englebert has proven his courage, just as each of us knights has done ourselves, why not reward him as you have done us, by making him a member of our brotherhood, grant him a knighthood?" "What an excellent idea!" King Arthur exclaimed. "I agree," said Merlin. Englebert did not know what to say. This was a great and wonderful honor. One by one all the knights spoke and agreed that Englebert should be granted knighthood. "Then it is settled," said King Arthur. "Step forward, Englebert, and kneel before me." Englebert did as the king asked. King Arthur took his famous sword Excalibur, and with it tapped Englebert on both his shoulders and in the top of his head, and spoke. "For your acts of courage and your service to the kingdom, I hereby grant you knighthood. Welcome to the Knights of the Round Table, Sir Englebert Duck." Everyone in the room cheered loudly as Sir Englebert Duck was given a place to sit at the round table, right next to Sir Lancelot. From that day onward, every member of the family of that original Englebert has been known as Sir Englebert Duck, and the magical powers, which first began with him, have grown and changed over these many years. But those are many other stories to be told at another time. And that, my sweet dear Lauren Danielle, is the story of how the very first Sir Englebert Duck came to be. Englebert Duck looked over and saw that Lauren Danielle had fallen fast asleep. He made sure that she was nicely and warmly tucked into her bed. "Good night, little one," he said. "Sleep well and sweet dreams." Then he kissed her on the forehead. Englebert Duck took his magical telephone and dialed a number that only he knew. With a puff of smoke he was gone as quickly as he had arrived. The next morning when Lauren Danielle awoke, she couldn't wait to go see her mommy and daddy and tell them what she had learned. Then she thought about what Englebert Duck had told her, and the biggest and sweetest smile came across her face. The end.